Hi, welcome to Fashion File's New York Flash Ship in New York City. I'm Sophia Lee, your host for Responsible Fashion, Designing for Resale, presented by CFDA and Fashion File. This is going to be such a fun conversation. We have Sarah Davis, founder of Fashion File, obviously. We have Julie Gilhart, founder, president of Gilhart and Company, and Maya Penn, artist, founder, and climate communicator, and so many more titles. But let's get started. So, Sarah, I want to understand what has been the trajectory of fashion resale and how has it completely transformed the landscape of fashion?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because fashion resale is not new. This is our grandparents all bought expensive things and sold them. And I've been shopping in consignment shops since I was a young age. This is something that has been part of actually fashion culture from the early days. You'd get a designer dress and what are you doing with it? You're done with it. A lot of people sell them unless they've got an archive or room to store. So this is not new, but what's new is adding technology and scale to, through resale. And so that's something I think that we're seeing. And really the pace as innovation and technology is introduced, the pace of change in the last 20 years is just remarkable. The speed of innovation and just even in the last couple of years, seeing that speed pick up, it's really exciting to be a part of.
And where does fashion resale stand now?
It's really kind of the first place a lot of people are thinking when they're looking at a luxury, a fashion purchase. Young people especially are kind of driving that because of sustainability and all those things. And so it's really exciting because it didn't used to be that way, that this is the first thing that comes to mind. And then secondarily, a lot of people, when they're purchasing something, they're thinking, how much can I get for this on the resale market? And they might spend a little more because they're actually thinking about the time when they're going to sell it later. Kind of like how we used to do with cars, where I'll look at two different cars and I might buy the more expensive car because the resale's better. And I know I'm going to sell it in a few years and get another car. That's something that our parents did. And now we're looking at, okay, I'm going to buy this bag or this watch, but if I buy that one, I can get way more for it when I sell it in a year and a half or whatever. And so they might buy even that more expensive item.
Okay, so now that decision is factored into a consumer's purchasing decision.
Totally, yeah.
So, Julie, you've worked with every luxury fashion brand at Barney's and beyond. When do you think that luxury fashion became accepted at mass scale? Because that wasn't usually the case.
No, and I mean Sarah was an early adapter, but I feel like I hearken it back to early Real days because right before Julie Wainwright started the Real, you had like Net-a-Porter and Shop Bop, and you had these like very fashion stylish, e-com platforms, and then all of a sudden you have a platform that looks like them and you can get everything on there, shoes, clothing, everything in terms of, your fashion lifestyle. And so the look and the technology was at the right time in the right place, but also the kicker was that they would come to your house and pick up your things. So you didn't have to go and photograph them, post them. So they made it so easy. And then you get a check once it's sold. And then you can apply it to the same site. So it just all of a sudden was this just sort of perfect storm. And that was around, I felt like the energy started to grow. I mean, you set the stage, but 2015, around there.
Around 2015. And what other key behavior changes happened around there to make it more acceptable for luxury
Social
fashion?
media.
Social media. Okay.
Social media, people talking about it, saying, look what I got. And then, social media was a great storyteller, in terms of, like you were saying, the value. Like I can buy a $4,000 Gucci coat, wow, that's a lot, but not really because I can resell it and it won't lose its value.
Yeah, and maybe also even social media plus celebrity stylists dressing. They were coming out with one-of-a-kind vintage pieces.
Yeah.
On the runways.
Yeah, very true, very true. And then we had for years tried to sell beautiful vintage in the store, and there was sort of like it's old, it's been worn before. But then it became sort of collectible. Okay, this was a Balenciaga from 2012. and so that's cooler than the one that the Balenciaga you could buy today.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it seems like for the first time in fashion history, the vintage pieces are more desirable than the new collections. Why do you think that is, that shift?
Well, it's luxury is mass now in a way. So it used to be much less that way. So if you're buying something that was once new luxury, it's even better because it's not accessible by the masses. So you have something special. There is that kind of personal thing about it that I think also plays into it too. Like I can play the luxury game, but I have this.
Like anyone could just buy the new collection, but
Yeah.
it takes, you
Yeah,
know,
takes a hunt to find that, look number 2 from a collection in, for several years back. They become collectible.
yeah. Does that explain? So, Julie and Sarah, does that explain the paradox of how we have like resale has reached unprecedented levels, yet luxury sales seems to be at a decline? Like, how do you explain that paradox?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like there's never been higher demand for luxury goods. Like when I started my business in 1999, like young people weren't like dressed with all of the it makes it accessible, that people, my children who are now in their 20s, unless you're very, very wealthy, it just wasn't accessible to everyone. And now you've got like younger and younger generations. Honestly, TikTok, you can have a 13-year-old on TikTok who like is searching FASHIONPHILE by lowest price and finds some like beat up Fendi spy bag, and she wears it on the TikTok and she looks so cute and quirky and cool. Like, oh my gosh, she is adorable. Yes, I want that. All of a sudden, everybody starts looking up the Fendi spy bags, and then all of a sudden, there's like a real fervor price, and the resale for Fendi spy bags goes up. Fendi's like, oh wow, look what this is happening here. They reissue the Fendi spy bag, and then it creates this virtuous cycle. That is something, to your point about social media, that never happened before,
Yeah.
where it used to be, oh, like this celebrity did this thing. And now it's just could be
Mhm.
some quirky, cute, artsy, person who's just like actually has a fairly small following in the grand scheme of things, but that can really create a trend. And we see that all the time. And why did that trend start? Not because they're even looking for the most unique, not because they're looking for, but really they're looking for a really great deal, something they could afford, and they love luxury brands, and they actually are strapped for money, and they want an authentic piece, and they're creative. And so it's just interesting they can bring those things back.
Also, luxury's gotten so expensive.
Mm.
It reaches a point where you look at something and you think that's more expensive than it needs to be. We've kind of reached that ceiling. And
Yeah.
so you think, no, I'm not going to pay that for that. It's good quality, it's handcrafted, blah, 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 but it's way too expensive.
Yeah, no, that's so fair. So Maya, speaking of quirky, artsy, fun people that we love to follow, what drives you to finally make that purchasing decision? Like, what makes you check out?
Yeah, well, I mean, Julie and Sarah really beautifully explained already. Like for me, as a member of Gen Z, my biggest focus is what makes me hit the checkout button are like quality, affordability, rarity, like things that fall within that Venn diagram definitely are motivating factors for me. And what's really interesting is, I personally grew up wearing vintage, secondhand, hand-me-downs, all of that sort of thing, and resale being a part of not only my own life growing up, and I personally really loved it because, again, as was really already beautifully explained, there is this uniqueness, there's this story behind the piece that you're really excited to share. And I think what's so fascinating is that I've personally seen, as someone who's been working on the circular economy side of fashion since 2008, like I've seen that stigma around secondhand and resale, really go away. And as you explained, it adds this additional level of this kind of almost personality and uniqueness to it. And yeah, the tastemakers of what's in and what's out is now spread not only just from the top, but just from everyday consumers and, people who are stylists, whether it is through, they're learning through social media and just collaborating with each other on a community level. Like there's actually a culture around resale that's really, really fascinating now. I have like vintage Diane von Furstenberg wrap dresses that I love. I have like 2 vintage Patrick Kelly dresses, for example, that, like these are the pieces that I personally seek out and I'm really proud to have in my collection and to share and kind of share the backstory. And I think a big part of the uh, kind of resale market, at least for a lot of Gen Z as well, is there is almost a sort of counterculturalism. There is so much, almost this level of excess and accessibility that to the point where, and this disposability culture also around fashion in general, to the point where I think that more and more um, young people, even if they weren't originally traditionally interested in luxury fashion, it feels like this is a way for them to participate in a way that doesn't, feel, I guess, very, typical, or has like, again, it kind of has this message from not only a style and aesthetics standpoint. Of course, Generation Z loves nostalgia, and I think a lot of brands are starting to, really lean into that from the luxury resale space as well. But then on top of that, there's also the sustainability and the circularity standpoint. This kind of has to become the norm if for young people who are also more kind of eco-conscious shoppers as well. So there are a lot of different reasons why, of course, I'm motivated to make those choices, and then other people of my generation are motivated to make those choices as well.
Yeah, so is it fair to say that with younger generations, even millennials and Gen Z, there's no longer that stigma of resale?
I really don't think that the stigma of resale exists at this
Yeah,
point. I just don't see it. I don't see that stigma in the same way where people are like, somebody like what Julie and Sarah just said, like somebody else wore that, or it's old, or it's this. Like that actually adds to it. Like
Yes.
this article had a life before I, owned it. And, this is the era that it's from. Everyone's trying to kind of invoke, whether it's 80s or 90s or early 2000s, Y2K, whatever people want to call it. It's really exciting to have a piece actually from that era to incorporate instead of just trying to do an imitation with new pieces. So that's something I think that adds to, again, even just pulling even from the nostalgia factor alone, like there's a cool factor to the fact that you are able to, beat the clock on this eBay bid and get this really rare piece. You can just proudly share that, and it's almost it adds again like a story, and it's almost again the contentification of fashion is another thing that probably adds to that where people are excited to share, here's how I acquired this piece, and that's what makes it additionally really interesting and almost adds an additional layer of luxury kind of in a new, redefined way.
Yeah, and how do you think
Provenance.
brands specifically can leverage resale channels so they could tap into conscious consumers like yourself?
I think that there are honestly so many ways, and there's still a lot of ways that are emerging and that are being streamlined. And it, of course, can be very complicated, whether you're talking about setting a buyback programs or tracking peer to peer. There's so many different layers to it, but there are a lot of really great examples. I collaborated with Coach on their launch of the Coachtopia line. I actually attended the 2023 Met Gala in a completely circularly made Coach gown made from, everything from bike tire tubes to remnants from chiffon from previous runway shows and even trash from the Met Museum. So that was a whole big thing we did around educating people around not only just circular fashion, but even the circular economy, resale. And then also just being a part of their Coachtopia launch campaign in general. Something that was really interesting, for example, that they do is kind of leaning into IoT or using NFC
Explain what
chips.
these acronyms
Okay,
mean.
so IoT, Internet of Things, talking about almost a lot of people kind of like to describe as using technology to make certain items smart, and especially in the context of circular economy, being able to track these items so that they can be reclaimed and either recycled or resold, because that's a really big problem for a lot of brands. So, for example, all of the Coachtopia bags, which are like basically these sort of remakes of a lot of their classic, bags, They have these like NFC chips in them. Basically, what they call it is all of your Coachtopia products have a digital passport where you can go on your online, find your item, like your exact like purse that you like, your tabby bag that you have, right? For example. And you can literally like they had this whole collaboration with Poshmark where you could hit resale like on the product and it would automatically like populate that listing with the pictures of the item, the information, like everything, like just streamline it, super easy. And then that bag could be resold through Poshmark, for example. So it's like that's a really unique, like, and that's they're kind of really built it into there from the ground up, and also the learnings from Coachtopia go back into the learnings of the entire Coach brand. But like that's a really unique example of almost making it convenient for people. Like, cause it's really it's things that people don't even consider that are barriers for people to even resell their products. Like, okay, I gotta take all these pictures and then I gotta write all of the information in the listing, and like, no, we just have that already for you. And there's a button that you can literally click. We have this digital version of your product and we can just
Yeah,
put
so
it right up
seems
there, you know?
Yeah, because Julie mentioned in 2015 it was technology making it a holistic system. You know, they come to your apartment, you get a check, and now it seems like technology again is basically scaling it to the next level.
Yeah.
Sarah, I want to talk about, you mentioned the Fendi spy bag and how it relaunched this bag. And so how are brands leveraging when their rise in popularity on resale platforms for vintage collections, pieces that they debuted with decades ago? How do they leverage that to make their new collections more valuable?
I think every brand really is taking that, like looking at it from a historical lens and saying what is because really, what is a like a heritage brand? It's like looking back to the story, like why do we spend so much money on a Chanel classic flap? You know, there's so much about the storytelling, about the heritage that is so beautiful that we really latch into. And in this world today where you've got things we don't understand, the Internet of Things and NFTs and crypto, and like, I don't, you know, people are really,
All the acronyms.
yeah, all the things. And they're like, they just want to really hold something that has value, that's got history and is real. And a lot of that is really the storytelling and the heritage behind that brand. And how do you really capitalize on that? Look back to what those historical pieces are, the people who were wearing them and the stories around that, and the special pieces from a special time. And if you can bring that back and with a little modern twist and do it with authenticity, like we all respond so beautifully to that. And so I feel like that's something that every brand is really trying to take a look at. In the handbag world is like where I sit. You know, I think Marc Jacobs actually really ushered that in with Louis Vuitton back in the 90s. That's where he really is the first one who said, okay, we've got this Louis Vuitton monogram. It was created in the 1800s. I mean, right? Like it still is relevant today, you know? And he's like, it's from the 1800s. What is special? How can we really like take a twist on this? It's almost like just borderline, almost offensive to the, but then not quite there, but just actually makes it so much more cool. And he did that. And then everybody kind of, you know, I really feel like he was one who ushered that in. And then now everybody's looking that. And if you look at like what Daniel Lee did with Bottega, took the weave that was classic. And honestly, for a lot of years in resale, Bottega didn't really sell that well. It was kind of like an older person's style, and it wasn't really, and he was like, okay, what is Bottega about? Like, what is the heritage? How do we get here? What are these styles? And then let's take this funky modern twist to the what's classic about this thing and really modernize it, take it almost to that level where it's just almost over the edge and it's just perfect, and really just brought the brand back in the most lovely way. And I think that's what all the brands are hoping is that they all have, the brands that we sell, the luxury brands, they're all have these amazing stories, you know, been around for decades, some of them since the 1800s. And so really pulling those threads as they weave this thread in the future. And I love when they're taking this cool modern technology in addition to this old, it's just really beautiful, that full circle.
Yeah, bridging the technology with their heritage.
It's
Yeah, I mean, we're all
perfect.
nostalgic creatures at heart.
Yeah.
Yes, Bottega Veneta is such a good example of
Yes.
that, for sure. Julie, what would be the piece of advice that you would give to designers who are on a smaller scale to incorporate resale into their business model?
Well, I'm a big proponent of when you have a customer, keeping that customer. And the moment they buy something, they've gotten farther from you. So if you're smart, like Coach, you've given them something that's going to help them and keep the conversation engaged. So no matter what level you are at, I feel like you have to follow the customer, and that you know, once they buy something, you are with them the whole way, you know. And so if for a smaller brand, if you're wanting to keep track of that, you make yourself available to help them when they don't want the goods anymore, product anymore, when it needs repair, or you know, many other circumstances. So if you're small, you have to give them resources. If you're large, you can maybe take it back. You can maybe repair it. You can, if you bring something back to them, maybe you give them a discount for a future purchase. You're with them the whole time, and that's how you build community. And the brands that have community are the ones that are best suited to continue on to the future. Because, you know, I mean, once you lose them when they start to be buying resale. Like if I were a big brand, I'd have my own resale, and I'd have my own vintage, and I would own it. And so it's really taking care of those customers at any level.
Yeah, you're a huge champion of how brands are the caretakers of their consumers.
Community.
Community. How have you seen, like, is there a case study or a brand that you've seen that have done this really well, taking care of their consumers and building that community even beyond the purchase?
Luxury, not so much. I mean, the real stars in that area are in terms of taking care. It's like Patagonia is definitely, they know how to do it. Eileen Fisher, she has an amazing program. You know, that could be copied. It takes a lot of ingenuity. It's expensive. If you're large, the technology of how to set up a resale platform or to take care of something, you know, return it, all of that. It's very time consuming, and it's expensive, but it's an investment in the future.
Yeah. And it's obviously worth it because they have these really cult followings, these
Yeah,
brands.
yes, and it's not, this whole resale thing is not gonna change. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's the fastest growing category in fashion right now. And so that's just not gonna change in a day. It's, you know, investors are looking at it. The numbers are really, really interesting, and it's a sign of the times, but I also think it's a shift in consumer behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, just the Coach thing makes me wanna go, like, have a bag, you know, it's
Yeah.
fun. You've made it interesting. Your purchases aren't just something you carry, but they have a whole life of their own.
Yes. Resale is the fastest growing fashion category. This is so interesting. So let's say resale, it's already the norm in the fashion industry. It's becoming the norm. What steps can we take right now to accelerate that shift for brands, for consumers? What would you say? Sarah, let's start with you.
I mean, there's so many different, like you're talking about, I think ThredUp trademarked the term RaaS, resale as a service. There are so many RaaS companies out there that will help you take your brand and really look at it differently. You asked a question earlier that we kind of like, I got off on a tangent, but the idea is like, if resale is really growing in luxury, why are the brands in resale in luxury
Declining.
softening a little
Yeah.
bit? And I think it's really the market and resale is so big and growing, that's coming from somewhere. If you say that there's a $60 billion market in luxury resale, where is that coming from? Some of this has got to be, you know, softening the brand. So the brand saying, hey, we can participate here. This can actually be a revenue channel for us. And there's so many different technologies out there. To Julie's point, this is not easy. It is, you know, and really most brands, you talked about Eileen Fisher and Patagonia, the OGs of resale and their brands, but like Levi's, Lululemon, Madewell, like when you go to any mall, everybody's doing resale. Everybody's participating. And there's like, of the hundreds of brands out that are participating in resale, there's like 2 that are doing any meaningful work themselves, meaning nobody's shipping Lululemon your old leggings and Lululemon is washing them and measuring. No, they've got a resale partner who's helping them to make to do the heavy lifting they were talking about. So it's not like you don't want it to be a distraction. Brands have got a bigger fish to fry right now in a market where things are, struggling. They're really trying to get softening up, trying to get a hold on it. It doesn't need to be a distraction. Now there's so many resources out there that can make it actually a revenue stream and support you as you're launching that. So really just thinking about it differently. I love what Coach has done because they've said not only is it the right thing to do, not only could there potentially make money in it, but it almost pays for itself because the storytelling is so beautiful. It's so perfect. And what is a better statement about your brand than this stuff is worth it? What we make is such a quality that it's worth having this second life. That is very gutsy of Coach to say, here's this, we've got this chip in this bag to make it very easy for you to be automatically sell on Poshmark. Historically, they've said, we want you to buy from your Coach from Coach, not from Poshmark. And that's very gutsy to say, here's an opportunity to sell it here. Someone is going to buy it in the secondary market. And that purchase is not from Coach. But they are knowing that the person who sold that hopefully has got money and now they're going to buy a new Coach bag with it. And so it kind of feeds the market that way.
Yeah, it's so true. It's just like, it is gutsy to be like, I surrendered to this, and this bag is going to exist in the world, and we just want it to keep it in utility.
Participate. Yeah, it's happening either way.
It's happening either way.
And the part is that it's not on the business plan, but it's the feeling that Coach is thinking about me, taking care of me, and telling me, we want, do this. This is good. And, it's like a good friend.
That's the community.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the community building.
It's not on a business plan.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is it can't even be put into your business model. It's just it has to come emotionally as well because
that's
products
what
are
fashion's
emotional.
about.
Yeah, fashion's emotional.
Emotion, instinct,
Yes.
feeling. And that's
It makes you feel something. It's a reflection of what we're going through.
And I think these days it has to be authentic. And I feel like that's a little bit about the resale market. It feels really authentic.
Yeah.
It's been out there. It's had a life. It has a story.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's...
We want to feel something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, especially in these times, we want to feel something. Mai, what do you think? What are some steps we can do to accelerate the resale market?
Yeah, well, kind of adding on to that, I think even going beyond the actual tools and the logistical, it's even really small things I think that help add to, the success that your brand will have in the resale market. So of course, just items being of quality and designed with a circular economy in mind, that I want my products to have multiple lives, even across multiple generations of people. Just having that in mind, and of course that's common across, that's the whole point of the luxury market. But I think just even in general, I think it's very small things that seem kind of obvious, but that does add to the resellability of your product, is how well it's made, and how well they can be, preserved and taken care of for whoever that next owner would be. And also just really leaning into, as we all just spoke about, Coach, just really leaning into that resale culture. I think the thing that makes Coach interesting is that they basically are creating their own language that is directly, coming from their branding and marketing team. They're creating their own, terminologies and platforms, stuff that feels really custom to them. So they're talking about, your purse has a digital passport. That's not the actual the standard name of what that technology is, but that's what Coach is calling it because that makes it really fun and engaging. It's like we have this special, whole exclusive profile for your bag. Like, who else is doing that? And I think really investing into not only how you talk about how you engage with the resale market in a way that feels really personal to the brand, and it feels personal to your community, as you described it really beautifully, but also understanding that even just through, it could be a promotional campaign, and maybe you're working with content creators, for example, and maybe a content creator is styling an outfit around a product from your brand. Maybe they acquired that product from a resale site, and maybe you intentionally want them to speak about that. And that's something that, even if it's in a casual way, your consumer base is going to see that and be like, oh, I didn't even think about, purchasing this brand on, Veste or at eBay or Etsy or wherever, right?
Or fashion
Or
files.
FASHIONPHILE, exactly, or FASHIONPHILE. So I think that, it's kind of really small things that are important to keep at the forefront as well. And I really, really hope that there are more tools that are developed that do help to really streamline this for smaller brands and for medium-sized brands, and ways to even, you know, track the peer-to-peer sales on a larger way, to be able to really have those numbers across multiple platforms, to even be able to incorporate the buyback programs. And of course, that takes a lot of resources as well. It's just like I really hope that, more. That's, I think, truly, as everyone has mentioned, where technology really comes in, and more tech companies that can actually cater to brands that are making that shift and are incorporating that into their brand overall, and just really being thoughtful from a technical perspective and from a marketing perspective of making sure those two halves kind of really meet each other and feel authentic and feel holistic, not only to your overall workflow as a brand, but also to how the brand is perceived. I feel like a lot of companies and brands also get scared about taking their consumers on this kind of educational journey. When actuality, a lot of consumers, one, are really educated because they're driving this shift, but also, again, that's when you can create your own vocabulary around these programs and why they're being incorporated.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like no matter how advanced tech becomes, though, it still goes back to the essence, the authenticity, the
Yes.
storytelling of the piece.
Yep.
So, last question, just want to really quick go down the line. Maya, we'll start with you. What's something you're wearing or recently have in your closet that makes you feel something, that gives you that emotion that you're like, this is why?
I honestly, I feel like everything that I buy
It's
answer
emotional.
to that question is emotional. I mean, a lot of even what I'm wearing like right now is a combination of vintage and my own designs for my own sustainable fashion company that I started in 2008. And you can see, because I'm bringing like, I always love to bring my personality and my emotion and my energy into everything that I wear. So that's something I would actually still count the pieces that I kind of spoke about earlier, like the Diane von Furstenberg like wrap dress, or the Patrick Kelly. Like I have this really cool bat wings kind of sleeve dress that's so pretty. Like those are two pieces that do come to mind. That's why I mentioned them earlier. Like I get anything that I get really excited about. Like if I don't feel like I get really excited about a piece, like then I'm gonna think about it a little while longer and maybe look for something else.
Yeah, it needs to bring you emotion, energy. Okay,
Mhm.
Julie.
I just make it a rule not to buy anything from someone I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So you need to know the designer?
I need to know. Yeah, and there's
Wow.
some designers that I don't would never buy anything secondhand or not. Someone who's trying to at least move the needle, and some are
Yes.
more aggressive in a more positive way. So if I really have to know the story of who I'm buying from.
Wow, I love that. You're
Yeah.
taking the emotion to another level. You're taking it to a personal relationship level. Like,
Yes,
that's
because then
amazing.
well, no, maybe not personal relationship, but I know that they're trying to do better,
Right.
for my values that we're all here for. And then also, I wear things to death.
Yes.
I mean, it's just I'm busy, and I just
You're a
I
working woman.
yeah, and I just make sure that I have to love what I'm buying, or for, the
Yeah,
person, and I just wear it and wear it and wear it and wear it and
I love
wear it.
that. Yeah, the
And I've
wardrobe has
gotten
to
to the
work for you.
point where if it's a little damaged or if it gets a spot on it, I don't care.
Yeah.
I remember that, like when I spilled something on that. That was a horrible day, but it's carrying my memories too. We don't have to be so perfect,
Yes, yes.
so.
Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think resale is a special place in my heart, obviously, but partially because I got into this world not because I wanted to have something unique or quirky, or I was looking for luxury. My parents, I bought my own clothes my whole life. My parents didn't give me money for school clothes. And when money is tight, and you're trying to stretch money, you care what you look like. I was shopping in thrift stores. I wasn't even shopping in consignment shops, in those early days. And I honestly, it just like, it's always allowed me to be able to present myself in the way that I want, regardless of the limitations that I had at the time. And so I always will have a special place in my heart. Everything I buy is in resale. It's like, that's just the way that I live my life. And it gives you access to things that it doesn't always have to be the craziest. This is like a really fun watch. It's an Hermes watch, but look at this. Like,
Ooh.
but by the way, this is like so inexpensive in the world of watches, but it's quirky and fun and cool. And I like watches, but you don't have to spend $10,000 on a watch. You can actually find very cool vintage pieces that are unique and fun and different. Like you don't run into it all the time. And it's just, and so I love that about this whole world. But I love just I feel like it really, resale gives accessibility to people of all types. There's all these stories you hear about like, oh, this brand is so snotty, you have to get in this line and they don't like you, blah, blah, blah. And we say, come on in. What do you want?
It's for everyone. Yeah.
It's for everybody.
Come
We
on
got
in.
something for everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
I love that. Well, ladies, thank you so much for chatting about how resale
Yeah.
complements rather than
Thank you.
competes with new collections. This is so fun. I'm like, I need to see your watch collection. I need to see your entire wardrobe. I need to see your entire wardrobe.